Right, Ipswich up next. Get ready for some last-minute heartache, because that always seems to be the case. I mean, if we're going to beat Derby's record, and that seems to be the only thing left this season, Steve, we're going to have to pick up some points here, because I think we're still 5 points short of their record.
Yeah, still plenty of work to do, which is ludicrous.
And this won't be easy, will it?
It won't, because they will be thinking, well, given that we've just shipped 10 goals in our last two games, this is the opportunity for us to kind of put things right and start looking in the other direction. Given that obviously Leicester managed to take a win out of their appointment with Dr. Tottenham this afternoon, so they are out of the relegation zone for the first time in a few weeks.
Every week, though, our result to Tottenham just looks worse and worse, doesn't it?
Oh, it's ridiculous.
We lost 5-0 to Dr. Tottenham.
What the? Yeah. It's nuts. But you're right. They've had a couple of heavy defeats, haven't they? So on paper, this would be one that they're looking forward to.
Yeah, it should be. But it's also a game that weirdly we've had the better. I mean, despite the results, obviously, I think for the vast majority of the last two games, well, in fact, all three games that we've played in the last season and a half, I think we've largely had the better of them. But it's been that kind of common problem of not putting chances away when we've had them, like the home championship game last season where Shea Adams had the entire goal to aim at and he hit the goalkeeper's face. And then obviously the two 96th, 97th minute goals in the subsequent games. And both of those games should have been won. We should have been out of sight at Portman Road. We should have been 3-4-1 up at sort of comfortably at half time, and we didn't get the game won. And they were a team that always go to the end, and as shown by those late goals against us. So yeah, it's another one where we're going to have to do something that we've not done very much this season, and that is
win.
Well, obviously win, but stay focused for the full quota of minutes, because I mean you can point to pretty much every game this season, even that Everton game where we did win. They had a lot of chances, and we had little spells where we lost the plot, and we've got to make sure that we don't have any of those on Saturday, because if we do, then that's Ipswich will scent blood, and that'll be their opportunity.
You know they're going to give this a real go as well, Glenn. They've got some players that could potentially cause us some problems as well. We've talked a lot about our recruitment, and a lot of people have compared the players that we brought in to some of those at Ipswich, and they seem to have done some decent business.
Well, they spent a lot of money because they had more scope to spend a lot of money because they weren't up against it with the PSR regulations. You know, they weren't carrying around with them an 85 million loss from a relegation season 2 years ago like we were. So they had the scope to spend more money, and you could, you know, they were very similar to us last year. Ultimately, they finished 2 positions above us. So you could say they were in a better position to start with as well. They obviously had longer to plan. And they've recruited some good players. I mean, the one that's really interesting, of course, is Liam Delap, because apparently fees were agreed with us and with Ipswich, and he chose Ipswich because I think the quote was that, you know, they wanted him more, which probably means they offered him more in terms of wages and stuff like that. So again, that goes back to who was really running our recruitment in the summer, like we said a couple of weeks ago, which is a situation that hopefully Dragan Solak has moved to try and rectify for this summer. So you do wonder if we did miss out on Liam Delap because of the sort of void in the structure that was there and has caused us problems. I mean, Ipswich, I've always thought, out of the 3 promoted clubs, maybe because of the players they bought and because of the spirit that they got together from the 2 seasons get promoted, I always thought they were the most likely out of the 3 to stay up. You know, I know Leicester won today, but I still feel that they'll go down. Ipswich, yes, they've been turned over the last 2 games, but it was Manchester City back at their best and Liverpool. So they will certainly be looking at this game as a must win. And I think in some ways there's more pressure on them than there is on us. I mean, we're down at the end of the day. They have to win this
we
game.
Can't call it a 6-pointer anymore, can we?
No, not well,
Only in that we have got 6 points.
perhaps if we get 6 points for it, we might have a chance of not finishing so far behind. But so I know that the manager is making noises about we can still stay up. I'm sorry, rubbish. So we've got to put them under. That has got to put them under more pressure than we are. So, but having said that, Zurich should definitely treat this like it's a cup final.
Yeah.
So I mean, I for his sake, he has to win it. He has to win this game, otherwise there's a very real chance. Is it Bournemouth at home coming up next?
Yep.
So, and that'll be easy, won't it? Jesus. So, so if he loses these next two, I think all the any goodwill towards him, I think it will be in danger of disappearing. Because at the end of the day, he's got to get some points at some point. It's all very well saying, yeah, we look better, but if we're looking at next season in the Championship, you've got to win something like 25 games, and he's got to show us that he can get a team of players, no matter how bad they are, to win the odd game. Otherwise, it's a problem. But I mean, it is going to be tough. Not in Ipswich have got Delap, obviously. They've got Hutchison and Philogene behind him, who are decent, and they've got solid central midfield with Morsey and Phillips. I say this every time. Morsey is one of these cloak of invisibility players who just commits 15 fouls a game and never seems to get booked. So, yeah, be interesting to see what happens with the referees and stuff like that. I strongly believe, even though he struggled against Nottingham Forest, I strongly believe we need to bring Flynn Downs back in, because it's Morsey and Phillips that we're up against, and I just think we need more someone a bit more combative in there than.
It's more his level, isn't it? That's for sure.
Yeah, and he knows he can do it against Ipswich. They I mean, if there's a weakness, the centre backs and the goalkeeper are where you have to look. So we have to pose a threat up front, which is not really our thing. So we'll have to try and do that.
They've changed the keeper, haven't they? Muric finally got dropped.
Yeah.
So they brought back Christian Walton, who, I mean, I don't think anybody ever expected that he would be a Premier League goalkeeper, but
no,
because they made a bit of a balls up, I think, with the guy who was in goal for them last season, who was pretty good, I thought. But they didn't offer him a new contract, and so he ends up at Burnley, and he's probably going to be quite potentially switching places with them in the summer. But yeah, Walton has been. I mean, he's been. I don't think he's made any complete howl-ups, whereas Muric, I think, had 4 or 5 errors that led directly to a goal. So yeah, I think they've slightly stepped up there, but probably at the expense of his ability to play the ball out. So I imagine we're probably not going to be looking quite so sharp on sort of the high press and picking up on any sort of lax passing out of the back, because frankly Walton's not up to it, so they probably won't do it. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what Zurich comes up with in terms of strategy for that.
Yeah, and who's
I mean, what we're going to play up front? I mean, I personally, I think Amo-Ameyaw has to play. Camaldine will play if he's fit, but otherwise, you're looking at Armstrong and Archer, who both basically look absolutely awful at the moment. So, what choices do you have? I mean, I think Paul will play, and then just hopefully Camaldine's fit, unless you're going to go and pick someone like Sam Amo. It's not going to happen. So, but for me, he's got to do something. I think he has to go out and win this game. But I do wonder if we've got it in us to win any game at the moment, unfortunately. So.
What are your thoughts, George?
Well, I think he mentioned he's hopeful that Camaldine will be able to play, although his quotes prior to the game were that the fitness staff are pretty worried that his injury might cause him to be out for a little while. I think Camaldine's biggest issue is if he plays football, he gets injured and then he has to miss out for a couple of weeks. He did mention as well that he thinks it's time for Wellington to get onto the pitch. So that'll be interesting. I think maybe he watched what Ryan Manning did and didn't really affect the game and thinks, well, we'll play a different player down that left-hand side. And then we've got Albert Grunbeck, who we haven't seen either. He only trained once or twice, I think, prior to the Newcastle game. So no surprise that we didn't see him. He sort of thinks he can play in sort of the Mateus Fernandes role, but I wouldn't drop Mateus Fernandes, but he thinks he can play further forward or a little bit deeper. So perhaps you chuck him up front. It's worth a try to stick someone else up there because no one's doing the business, are they?
No, I was going to ask you, Steve, about fullbacks, and as George mentioned there, I had picked up on like the Wellington stuff. It sounds like I do admire his honesty. Like Ryan Manning's obviously not had the best game, and then he comes out and says, "Well, you know, maybe Wellington's going to come in," and we've seen that before, haven't we? Where a player's not really performed, and he's not directly called them out, but dropped strong hints that they're not going to be featuring the following week.
Yeah, I mean it's surprisingly unsubtle. I mean, I guess that kind of comes from the sort of background of where you're in Italian football. There is no real diplomacy when you've got a microphone in front of you. Whereas over here, obviously, everyone's very sort of media trained, and you don't say anything you don't give anything away really. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what Wellington's looked like because he played one half
minutes
of
the 20,
didn't he? And then was in the lineup for that game last week, and then him and Bella Kotchap were mysteriously removed. Or I don't know whether it was just a printing error or something. Whether they'd been given the team sheet the night before and it changed before the actual team sheet went in. But yeah, so we've only got 45 minutes of evidence in terms of what he can do in this country. So yeah, I mean we don't know what he's going to be like. Whether he's going to be able to step up, sort of in the need of battle, if you like, but it's worth a go, isn't it? I guess. And bought the guy. We signed the guy for a reason. We signed him kind of with 6 months, sort of 4 or 5 months before he could actually join us. So we've obviously seen something in him. So yeah, why not? Let's see what the kid can do.
It'd be interesting to see if Carl Walker-Peters is still here as well, Glenn. There's obviously rumours about Galatasaray. And did you say he looked like he was saying his goodbyes at the end of the game yesterday? Did you pick up on that? There was a slower walk around the pitch, wasn't it?
Yeah, someone who's, I won't say who it is, a very sensible Saints fan tweeted out that he was spending a lot longer than usual, sort of like walking around the pitch at the end, sort of like talking to people, gave his shirt away, that sort of thing. So whether you can read into that, I think we always knew that if anyone came in with any money, then 5-10 million or whatever, then we would let him go simply because of the basically the season's done, isn't it? And we'll get nothing for him in the summer because there's no way he's staying. It does seem to be a more of a trend that these days for players to go abroad and play. From English players, so I know it's silly season, but you're seeing Tyler Dibbling linked with Dortmund, for example, which wouldn't have happened 5-6 years ago, but since the likes of Sancho went abroad and obviously Bellingham now, it seems to be the thing for young players to do, and there are many others who have done that. So Walker-Peters obviously not young, but it just seems to be something that a lot of players seem to want to do now. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if he goes to Galatasaray. It'll probably be a good move.
Worth noting that his best mate Dele Alli has recently signed for Besiktas. So he's in Istanbul as well. So that may be a factor in that potential move as well. I mean, personally, I'd be quite disappointed if he went to Turkey. I think that's probably a step down in terms of the level that he should be playing at.
Does it matter though? Does it matter to us? Because I'm kind of like he stayed last year. He gave us more than some of them. And he's been pretty honest about.
From our perspective, I think it makes very little difference. I mean, if we get a few million quid in, sort of this month, sort of 4 or 5 months before his contract runs out, then yeah, okay, fine. You take the money and run. But I think from his kind of career perspective, that when there was talk that he was sort of interesting the likes of, I don't know, Spurs, Newcastle, sides like that, last summer, or maybe and the year before when we got relegated, to now then decide, well, no, I'm not going to try my luck and get another Premier League side. I'm gonna go to Turkey, and I assume he'll get paid a lot better over there. Certainly a more comfortable tax regime for footballers in Turkey these days. But yeah, I kind of wonder whether he's selling himself a little bit short there, and he should be possibly still looking to get himself on the fringes of that England squad, perhaps. But I don't know.
Does it make sense to you, George? I mean, to me, as Glenn says, the season's done, isn't it? And he's going presumably for free at the end of the season anyway. So if we can get any money for him, then that's a bonus. And I would probably say that applies to any of the others as well. If any decent offers come in, then there's a chance to get some money in the bank ahead of next year.
Yeah, I don't see him signing another contract. I think he'd be daft to sign a contract, especially considering relegation's all but guaranteed at this point, isn't it? And I don't really personally see him going to Galatasaray for the reasons mentioned, that he's probably a bit better than that in terms of what you see when some players go abroad. It's as if they're immediately out of the England plans. It might be different under Thomas Tuchel, but he said to Alfie earlier this season that he wants to get back in the England squad, and perhaps Galatasaray aren't the only team after him. I think they're allowed to speak to him in terms of a pre-contract agreement, because it is up in 6 months. English clubs not so much allowed to do that at this stage. But I think you'd be better off being patient and maybe waiting until, for himself personally, waiting until the summer if he doesn't go this month, because he might even get more money in terms of the payout. When you sign a new contract as a free transfer, you tend to get more money that way. So sort of either way, he's probably not going to be a Southampton player next season, and it doesn't really matter who he goes to, because he's probably going to stay in the Premier League and Southampton aren't going to be there, so you're not strengthening any rivals.
Also, last season when we had the situation with Che Adams and Stuart Armstrong, but because we were playing obviously to get promoted last season, there was a damn good reason to keep them. And because you got the big sort of like financial bonus of getting promoted. Not that you didn't really know it this season. So, but you're aiming at that, and that's worth more than, a couple of million quid selling them in January. So it is a completely different situation. And I know even Yorick has said that we need to keep all our best players. Yeah, you would say that, mate. We are relegated. So no, I just, whether it's Galatasaray or someone else. I mean, if I was Kyle, I think I'd wait till the end of the season, to be honest, for the reasons that George said, because
to get the signing on bonus. And
and there are lots of teams that would take him on. Maybe some wouldn't take him on to be first choice, because he can cover both sides. He's be a very, very good squad player if a team can convince him to go there. I mean, even Newcastle, we played yesterday, they got two young kids at full back, one of which might get injured or lose form or whatever, so he'd be a good addition there. But whether he'd settle for being second choice, I don't know. But I think if I was him, having waited 4 years or 3.5 years into my contract, I think I'd certainly be waiting till the full benefits could be realised by moving for a free in the summer.
Let's do some score predictions for the weekend. One of us got a 3-pointer last week. It doesn't happen very often. Mr. Glen de la Cour. Alfie as well. I think he's had the weekend off to celebrate, actually, getting a prediction right. So Glen and Alfie both got a 3-pointer last week. There were a few others as well. So well done. Glen, I'll give you the honour of going first this week in that case. How do you see the Ipswich game panning out? Tougher one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Well, I think all three results are eminently possible. So it's just a case of, how's your luck? Let's try and think of the logic here. I'm not going to be right 2 weeks running, so let's go for a 1-1 draw.
Defeat.
Yeah, let's go for a 1-1. Let's go for a 1-1 draw. But I actually think we might nick this one. But I'll go for a 1-1 draw.
All right, okay. George.
Copy and paste 3-1, not because I think Southampton aren't good enough to beat Ipswich, but it's just the most common result this season, and I feel like probably see another one.
That's fair. That's a good logic. Better logic than most. Steve?
Well, we'll score because their defence is pretty awful, and we've found a way to actually trouble the scorers in the last few weeks, which is a little bit of a step forward. can we not concede 3? That'd be nice. So I'll go for a 2-2. Why not?
All right. Well, I've gone for 1-1, and I'm going to change my mind now. So I'm going to go for 2-1 defeat, just to mix up a bit. And we always lose.
Still can't bring ourselves to predict a win.
No, I used to work with someone who's an Ipswich fan years ago, and I only ever hear from him twice a year when they beat us, and I get a message from him, and that's it. So I'm expecting to hear from him on Saturday night. So I'll go for a 2-1 defeat.